It's a 2022 Acura TLX Type S. He did have to pay MSRP because they only made like 330 of them last year. He went out and bought this new because he wanted something sporty. He wanted to get an interesting car. This is a very interesting car. It's the Turbo Type S. Now, it's got the NSX wheels, the very fancy wheels. We're talking high technology. Now listen to the exhaust. You're gonna have the comfort sound. A nice conservative tone. But when you go into sport, and now here's Sport Plus. Now he's a conservative driver. I would have revved the crap out of it and made more noise. But like the BMW I tried out a couple years ago, it's got baffles in there that can open up. So if you really want to rev it up, you can get popping. You heard a little popping, but you can really make these things pop. He doesn't want to. It is a more conservative system, but being made from Honda, believe me, it works. They know what they're doing. They run fine. They're not having problems with them. And you can play. If you want it quiet, quiet. You want it louder, you can make it louder. Well, look under the hood, and when we drive it, you'll hear more noise because it's got a rev limiter when you just sit. When we drive it, he can rev it, and it won't rev limit, and you'll hear it popping. But what's under the hood is what this thing's all about. It's a V6 engine. It puts out 355 horsepower. Now, this isn't an engine that's shared with the Odyssey or with the Accord. It's an engine that they're only using this. Now, they're going to put it in the MDX this year, they say. But it is designed pretty much from scratch, and it's a phenomenal engine, really. Take off this ugly beauty cover. Get it out of the way. Throw it over there. Look at that. Now there is a marvel of engineering. Overhead cams, and sure, it's an electrician's nightmare, but Honda knows what they're doing. All these sensors do quite a bit of things. Knowing Hondas, they probably won't have any problems at all as long as you stay above water. The turbo, look what's above it. Heat shield. They don't want to blister the paint. That would be sacrilegious. Now sure, the battery's heading away, but you know, you got a nice post here. You ever have to jump start it, you can just put positive here, negative anywhere over here, and it'll jump start easy, if you ever have to. Now check out the headlights. You get in a wreck with one of these, you think headlights are expensive on other cars? These babies are about 4,000 bucks a piece, so make sure you got insurance. Now you can see, these are very low profile tires. There's the sidewall. It isn't very big. And he did hit a Rhode Island pothole, so to fix the tire that went flat, towing everything, cost him 415 bucks. These are low profile tires. They're not made for potholes. They're made for really nice driving and cornering, so stay away from the potholes. So he bought tire insurance. Cost him 20 bucks a month. And he says now he thinks it's more because they keep paying for so many tires. I always laugh when people started buying tire and wheel insurance. When I was in Houston, it was a big deal because these tire stores, they'd sell the fancy rims and the fancy tires. Some of these things would be $3-4 grand per car, right? And they were kids. Do kids have money? No. But they got a monthly payment, and the insurance would be in a monthly payment. And the guys who ran the store loved it because every time the kids wrecked a tire and wheel, the insurance company paid them to put new ones on, and there was no risk. Now in that case, you didn't have a choice. If you were leasing the wheels, which these guys did, they didn't have enough money to buy them. They only leased the wheels, and the insurance is part of it so that if it does get wrecked, they're not out. They actually loved it when they wrecked because they made more money selling more tires and wheels. So if you're thinking about a car like this, you might look into that $20 a month tire insurance. It's probably worth it. Now that policy, he said, is at Allstate, and interesting enough, they cover the wheels too. So you can see where it's been nicked here. They're going to fix it for free under the policy. Now he informed me that you can't even get these wheels. You got to get them fixed. They don't sell them at Honda. Somebody offered him a couple of grand for them. He said no, he likes it on the car. Getting the $20 a month insurance would definitely be worth it. Now the front are full Brembos. They're massive brakes, you can see. And I kind of agree with the design. You can see they're not drilled and slotted. They're vented in the middle. You might wonder why. Okay, numero uno. It's not made as a race car. It's fast, but it wasn't made as a race car. You get drilled and slotted rotors, they make noise. So, you get a luxury car like this, you don't want drilled rotors and slotted rotors because they make a lot of noise. You want to be a nut and put on ones, go ahead, but you might not like the noise that you're going to get. Where was it made? It was made in Marysville, Ohio. It doesn't say that. It just says that Honda development, but believe me, it was made in Ohio. But that's Honda's big plant. I've had a personal tour of that years ago, and it's phenomenal, the stuff that they do there. They're right next to the giant proving grounds that they took over. So believe me, they test these things out, and they're well made. Only making 330 of them a year. It's not exactly mass produced. You don't like peeling Honda paint, which they had problems with this. This is 5-layer pearlescent paint. They don't want it to fade on their flagship. But he did say, he thought they cheaped out on the rear brakes because they're not Brembos, they're just painted red. But really, on my motorcycles, I don't even use the rear brakes, I only use the front brakes. The rear brakes are more for stability, for staying straight when you're stopping. There's not that much braking power, you can see it a lot smaller too. So I would moan about that, you know. He puts the seat back. Only really skinny people can sit behind him. I could get 3 fingers barely behind there. Let's just say he only carries skinny supermodels in the back seat. Okay, the car was 55 grand, but they kind of cheaped out. Let's check the trunk. First, if you get a flat, there's a trunk button. Well, there's a button over here. Aha! It doesn't come with a spare tire. All that money he paid, he had to pay 300 something bucks for an extra spare tire. So he didn't have a spare tire. Instead, they gave him this. It's an air pump that's got sealant goo in it. Now, even if you wanted a spare now, they're on back order. It'd take weeks to get it. But believe it or not, they wanted 200 bucks to install the spare tire because they said, well, they got to remove this and put another one on. The Japanese at Honda and Acura found out the dealers were charging that. They probably slapped them in the face because they'd see that as an insult. But of course, the Americans, they just want to make money and pile money on money. If you remember the story I did the other day, there was a guy in the United States that went to buy a certified pre-owned car. And they said it's certified pre-owned. So I went, looked, they liked the car. And then they told him, well, you know, we have to add $1,000 on the price of the car because it's certified pre-owned. I'd never heard that one before, but I mean, $200 to do this and throw a spare tire inside, that's kind of close to that. He went to various dealers because the first one he went to wanted 15 grand over MSRP. So he ended up paying MSRP, but people are paying that kind of money to get their hands on cars. It's kind of crazy. So I imagine 6 months from now, the next time he comes by when I'm here, he'll probably have another car, and he'll probably have made 4 or 5 grand, or maybe even more, selling this thing on. He's already found used versions of these. They're selling for 65 grand used. Since he paid 55 and he's only got a whopping like 600 miles on it now, he could certainly sell the thing and make a profit. That's what this guy does. Now, if you really want to do something like that, it's doable if you're sharp and you know how to deal with the business. Most people are just throwing their money away, contrary to the past history, of course. With this crazy price, so many cars are going for such high dollars. You can get away with things like this. There's no saying how long it'll happen. With hyperinflation on its way in the United States, who knows? It might become a way of life in the future. And interesting enough, the radar cruise control that can read lanes, it's looking through here. But that's just the cover. The actual electronics are back in there, which is a smart thing. The bells are toiling for me, I guess. Maybe it's all over. The way this thing is set up, you don't have to buy the whole system, just a stupid little fiberglass shield on it. A better design. If they're gonna make only 330 of these cars in a year, they're gonna make them right, you know, because it's not a profit motive there. Well, how much profit can they make? They only have 330 of them. It's more an exercise in engineering to see what they can make. So let's take it for a ride and see what it does. And now we're gonna start it up and put it in Sports Plus mode. Sport for the engine, then you put on Sport for the transmission. They're separate controls. Now here we go on the rough roads of Rhode Island. You can see, hey, we're hitting some big bumps, and it's not bad. For as bumpy as this road is, as fast as this car is. So here we go out on the road, and we'll give it a little gas. Yes! What a sound! Hey, this thing is as much fun to drive as a Civic Type R, if you ask me. This thing is just insane acceleration. Watch this. There it goes! Whee! But we gotta slow down because my street's the next one. But do the brakes work? Let's see. Oh man, those brakes work like no tomorrow. That's no problem. We're headed to the ocean. If you don't like people whacking to your mirrors, you lock the car. No more coming back to your car and finding out that part of your door is gone. So you want a luxury sedan. Hey, you got 55 grand, burn a hole in your pocket. You'll probably never get one now for 55 grand. He's a wheeler dealer, so he did. And like I say, he'll probably sell it and make $5,000 or $10,000 and come with something else. For a sedan that's like this with that engine, they only made 330 of them last year. It impressed me. I gotta say, it's an impressive car. The only thing that isn't impressive is the gas mileage. Now, he drove it conservatively coming here and he got 17 and a half. Usually he gets about 16, and he's a conservative driver. He doesn't drive like a maniac. I was the one driving the car here. He's a very conservative driver. If I drove this car, I would probably get 5 or 6 miles a gallon, because in the Shelby Cobra that was rated at 14, I got 3. So you want a sport or sedan that's got some oomph. Rather amazing car, because they're not going mass market. They only make a few hundred of them. What the heck? It's technology that Honda can do. They own Acura. They did a pretty good job on this. I'm impressed. You got 55 grand and you can find one, buy it like him. You get tired of it, you can make some money on a deal. This is a brand new 2021. Are they making them the same? Or are they making them worse than they used to make them? As you can see, it's still made in Japan. It's still big. It's not downsized. Now, I happen to love these old style doors. To begin with, there's nothing up here that might conk you in the head. It's very convenient having a side opening door. It's perfectly set up too. You can lock it, unlock it. And being an SUV, of course, doesn't have a trunk, but it's got the nice hideaway. So you can hide stuff under there and people won't see it. Now, as you can see, there are actually third row seats. They're hiding under here, but they are awful small. You could call this a 3-row seat vehicle, but I personally wouldn't, because they're really tiny in the back. This isn't a full-size thing. That's not why people get these. Now, one thing I noticed a few months ago when I was checking out a 7-year-old Lexus was the paint was a lot thinner than my wife's paint. I thought, gee, are they making them cheaper? So let's check this one out. We'll get my old paint measure here and we'll see how thick the paint is. In this case, it's 120. That's 122. Now, if you think about it, that's pretty amazing. That's because it's all done by computer robots. And they can get the right amount of microns on. No human being could ever do that spraying it on, right? It's all done by machines. To have that kind of consistency is a lot better than a 7-year-old one that I tested out before. Well, look at my wife's 20-year-old Lexus. As you can see, my wife's Lexus is 115. That's pretty close. And we'll check the hood out. The hood's 120. It's a 20-year-old car. Paint still looks like new because we polish it all the time. Now, of course, if you know me, I abhor these gigantic mouths. I don't know what it is with their design. It's like the kids screaming from Home Alone going down the road. I just don't comprehend why a luxury vehicle has to have this giant scowling mouth on it. I mean, look at my wife's Lexus. It's understated elegance. Nice chrome. A little mouth. Nice lights. Hey, that's class. And I guess the lesson here is monkey see, monkey do. They're all doing this now. Like, oh, when I was a kid in the 60s, they were all making fins. Eventually, they had these fins that were like 20 yards long, sticking out of the back of these Cadillacs. You'd be impaled on them if they backed up into you, you know? Now they're all doing the scowling thing. They just follow each other. I don't know, I just think it's crazy myself. Plus, if you really think about it, this isn't that aerodynamic. But then again, you buy a vehicle like this, it's not gonna be aerodynamic. Big SUVs with big old V8 engines in them do not get good gas mileage. Now, this owner knows. He says he gets 17 or 18. I've had many customers with these over the years. They had no idea, and they didn't want to be told. They just knew they had to fill the thing up all the time, especially when they did stop and go city driving. They're gas hogs. There's no way out of it. High up in the air, so they're not all that aerodynamic because they're up too high, with a lot of weight and a giant V8 engine. And a massive rear end in the back. A real spare tire. Hooray for real spare tires. And it's even a fancy rim. It's not some cheapy spare. Now, he traded in a pile of junk. A good trade-in for it was a Nissan Maxima that already had an engine replaced. It was a pile of junk. And then he had to pony up 51 grand for these. Normally, you're going to buy one, it's going to be 60-something thousand dollars. They're not giving the things away. There's no arguing that. But still can last an extremely long time. Let's get the computer out, see what it says. We'll put the ignition switch on. Diagnosis, VIN number, auto scan, automatic scan. Here we go. And you can see it's scanning it pretty fast. These new systems are much faster than the older ones were. You can see it's going through absolutely everything. Look at all the stuff it's going through. So far, everything is normal, no problems. 2 to go, 1 to go. and normal, no problem. So let's check out some live data. And here we go. Everything's correct colors, nothing odd. Even though I just started it up, it's already in closed loop. Shows you how fast it gets in the closed loop. Warms up quick. Check it out, the short-term fuel trim, 0.000. Long-term fuel trim, 0.000. Bank 2, 0.000. The only thing is, the long-term fuel trim on Bank 2 Sensor 2 is a tiny bit, 0.781. So it's almost completely perfect. It's just off a tiny bit on one side. Oh well, even Lexus can't be 100% perfect. Now realize with a car like this, there's data coming up the wazoo. We're still in the A's. Check this out. This is how much data there is. These are the A's. La 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 la. La la la. This is all live data that you can mess around with. And we're still going. We're still going again. And we're still going. And we're still not at the end of it. Look at this. It's insanity, the information you can get out of one of these things. It's totally insane. Almost perfect. It's running. The average engine speed of the cylinders is 51199. Then we go to all the different ones. 51199. 51199. Let's see if any of them are any different. No, they're all exactly the same. So this engine is basically running perfectly. Now, yeah, it's a new car. It's only got 15,000 miles on it. But it just showed you how well these things are still being made in Japan. They are built solid. Practically a perfectly running engine. So we're started up, take it for a ride. Back it up. Nice view. First thing you'll notice, you're pretty high up in the air. Good thing it's got a backup camera. It'll keep me from hitting the neighbor's mailbox, which I hit before. It's a very high up in the air vehicle. You get a very good vantage point. And it's smooth. That's why they have V8 engines in them. Smooth power. Yet for something this big and heavy and tall, hey, it really corners quite well. It's not over or under steering, really. Of course, it has massive brakes when you gotta stop. Stops, no problem, no noise. We'll take it to our little drag strip. Got that V8 sound, and here we come to our little drag strip area. We'll just come to a stop out here in the country. Ready, set, go. It's one big heavy vehicle, but it gets up and goes. Smooth shifts. Powerful engine, but yes, if you drive like this all the time, you won't even get 17 miles a gallon then. It'll really go down. But I do hear a rattle. Ha! A rattle. That's just a stupid baby seat with no baby in it. Now, if it had a baby in it, it wouldn't be rattling. But then again, the baby might be screaming. I don't know which is worse. The rattle of the empty seat or a squalling baby. Take your pick. Now, I for one hope they keep these V8 engines in these Lexuses because there's nothing like it in this big SUV. Let's hope they don't go twin turbo like they are with the Tundras. Ruin a perfectly good truck that can last forever with a V8 by putting in a higher revving, fancy V6 twin turbo engine that even though Toyota's making, all turbo engines wear out faster. That's just the way that it goes. But really, for such a large SUV, hey, it's got no problems handling twisty roads. Very crisp handling. And for something this size, an extremely smooth ride. Now as you see under here, it has a solid truck frame, but it sure as heck doesn't drive like an old truck. It has a smooth ride. These engineers, really, they put their thinking caps on when they made the suspension system for this thing. You would have no idea that you're driving around a big old solid frame truck. It doesn't ride like those old trucks at all. It's an exceptionally smooth and well handling frame, suspension, wheels. They really designed this thing correctly. If you don't mind bad gas mileage, hey, this is the thing for you. So what did we learn today? They're still making Lexuses great in Japan. Now I did check out a Lexus 2007, wasn't made in Japan. The paint wasn't right, was too thin. This was made in Japan. Like I say, it makes a big deal of difference where a vehicle is made. I was totally impressed by the Toyota Corolla hatchback that I checked out in Rhode Island. And guess what? It was made in Japan too. They just have more quality. They stand behind there. The perfection of the paint. Hey, I'm thinking when this is 20 years old, the paint's gonna look like my wife's car. It'll still look new. As long as you keep the bird crap off of it and polish it and keep everything from staining the paint, hey, it can last a long time if it's built right. From what I see, they're still building excellent vehicles in Japan. It's a Toyota Tacoma TRD Sport version, 4-wheel drive, but it's made in Mexico. And if you look closely, what it says is Toyota Motor Manufacturing, Baja California, right? Well, that's the state of Mexico. These things are put together in Mexico, but I emphasize the words put together. As we look under the hood, they don't make the engines and transmissions in Mexico. They're Japanese. Vehicles are just put together in Mexico. And why? Because the labor's cheaper. That's the way the world is going. They're building them in Mexico. I know it's a fact for GM. Some of their workers are making $6.85, not an hour, for a whole 12-hour work day. So they're saving so much money they can't resist building things in Mexico. But on the other hand, I had a customer in Houston, had a Toyota Tacoma built in Mexico. He had 350,000 miles. He kept it up. It still looked like a new truck, and it ran like a new truck. So it's not a horrendous thing like a lot of the Dodges and GMs that are built in Mexico. I did have a customer in Houston who bought one of these made in Mexico, and after a week the radio system broke. But of course Toyota fixed it for free. I didn't see them have engine problems, transmission problems, because those are all made in Japan anyways. They're solid built. They're just putting them together in Mexico. Pretty much the same as other Toyotas. The gaps are even. Not any different from one side to the other side. They're the same. And it even came with this cool top. It didn't have to pay extra for it. It came with it. When it's cooler out, my grandson likes camping out in this thing. Which isn't going to happen today because it's supposed to hit 102 degrees Fahrenheit. So nobody's going to be camping inside there today. We got the ultra reliable Toyota V6 3.5 liter engine. And yes, it is the D4S V6. So it has both GDI fuel injectors and normal fuel injectors. But strangely enough, he opted to stick with a mechanical fan. Now with all the fancy technology on this V6 engine having GDI direct injectors and regular injectors on the intake, something interesting has happened. Driving in town, this thing actually is rated at 1 mile a gallon better than the 4-cylinder Tacoma. It also gets almost the same exact gas mileage on a highway. My son is getting 24 on a highway if he drives 55 miles an hour. It's rated at 23, he gets 24. He's not really towing anything. And the 4-cylinder engine is rated at 24 miles a gallon. So you're not gonna save any money getting the 4-cylinder versus the V6 on this because of the technology. And of course, you get a lot more horsepower out of this thing. More to drive the 4x4 and more to tow. My son said he got it so he could tow boats and stuff, but really, I think he bought it because it's got this cool hood scoop on it. Now, since it's 4-wheel drive, you got drive shafts in the front and the back. And you can see they have upgraded suspension systems. They ride much smoother than they used to. Get out, people. The splash pan, it ain't no piece of cheap plastic. They've gone back to metal. As you see, it's got nice large wheels, gigantic differential in the back, and of course, it's a full frame truck. This isn't one of these unibody clunkers. A real spare tire. But interestingly enough, the spare tire is a Hankook. Well, the regular tires are Toyo tires. Even though it's upside down, made in the USA, baby. They did not stick cheap Chinese tires on this baby. Let's go inside and check it out. All right, it's a Toyota. We know it's gonna start. And it's got a much bigger upgraded screen compared to the old ones. Now it is a truck, so it's got canvas seats. It's gonna last a long time. And just like the Fords, got a window that opens and closes in the back. So you can throw your beer cans out there. Of course, you'd have to remove the top, otherwise they'd bounce into the street. So remember to remove your top. Got lane departure, so if you go across the line, it's gonna warn you. It's got a pretty decent backup camera. Now, of course, this is new. It's only got 382 miles on it. Not a shake with this V6 engine. Now, I do have to say, I'm a 4-cylinder fan, but if they can get better gas mileage in town and about the same on the highway, there's no reason not to buy a V6 engine. Toyota knows what they're doing when they build stuff. These V6 engines can last a long time. The problem was they were tremendous gas hogs for quite some time. Well, in this thing, like I say, my son goes on a trip. He got 24 miles a gallon when he did all highway drive. You can take it off-road, 4-wheel drive vehicle. That's pretty good gas mileage for a gasoline engine. I'm not a fan of push-button start, but what can you do? But check it out. This baby's got a real handbrake. Yes, a cable that goes to the back. Tried and true, why mess with success? And your collision avoidance. Up your phone up so you don't have to touch anything. So take it for a spin, see how it rides. Like I say, the backup camera's pretty good. I can avoid the lions at the end of our driveway rather easily. And now I won't hit the neighbor's mailbox like I did last year. There's the mailbox. Notice I'm not hitting it. It's a TRD, so it's pretty high up in the air. It's very comfy. For a TRD kind of off-road vehicle, got a pretty smooth ride, really. And Toyota, unlike a lot of the manufacturers, hasn't gone bonkers with the speeds of their transmissions. This particular one is a 6-speed automatic. They didn't go 9-speed or 10-speed, yet it still gets an impressive 24 miles a gallon on the highway. So you don't really need all those speeds. And the 6-speed in these things have been proven to be extremely reliable. They very rarely break down in these trucks. We'll see what kind of acceleration it's got. We'll floor it. It's got pretty good acceleration for a pickup truck. Makes a nice sound too. I'm kind of glad that they made the exhaust a little bit aggressive so it's not just quiet. Makes a nice sound. Isn't going to annoy your neighbors, but it shows that there's some power there and you feel it when you take off. So if you want, you can shift it manually. You can play around with it if you want. Now, it's not like dual clutch transmission that's real tight shifting. I mean, just a regular automatic. It's not some swanky dual clutch transmission that shifts like a race car. It's more an add-on. And it takes corners quite well for a pickup truck. It's just a standard solid rear differential. You know, you can spin around with it if you want. Very simple to use. It's all electronic. 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel high, 4-wheel low. Very easy to use, and even has a lockout, so you got to push it so you don't accidentally hit it. But you do have to kind of get used to the transmission, because watch this. There's a little bit of a glitch going from first to second sometimes. These 6-speeds are kind of notorious for that. It doesn't hurt anything, but some people, they find it kind of annoying. They're absolute fanatics. We smooth that time, but every once in a while you get a little, yeah, I felt a little clunk there. That's just how these things are. To get good gas mileage, most of these automatic transmissions are going to have a little, there it goes, it just shifted down because I'm going up a hill. It keeps trying to get you the best gas mileage, but in doing so, when it's trying to get too good gas mileage going uphill, it'll clunk down to the next gear a little bit. That's just the nature of these 6-speeds. They can run a really long time, but some people don't like them. They say they're not tight enough. And they aren't as tight as, say, if it would have been a dual clutch automatic transmission, it would have been a lot tighter. Now, a lot of people do whine about the automatic transmissions being slipping and sliding, going uphill, trying to get better gas mileage. So if you are an absolute fanatic about driving, get one of these with the standard transmission. You can shift it yourself. You're not going to get any better gas mileage. You'll probably get worse because you'll rev it up higher, but you'll have a lot better control. If you're going to buy one of these things and go off-road, really, you have to get the standard transmission. I like telling people the truth about vehicles, and the truth is, if you're nuts about a really tight automatic transmission, you're probably not going to be happy with this thing. You'd want to get a standard transmission because it is a somewhat sloppy, over going uphill, downhill. It'll run and last, but if you like tight automatic transmissions, you wouldn't really want to buy this truck. You would want to go get a standard transmission version of it, or get something that has a tighter automatic transmission. Now, it's a Toyota. It will probably run forever. Tacomas have a history of running a really long time, but if you want a truck like this much horsepower with a V6 engine, and you want to get 24 miles a gallon on the highway, you got to have a transmission like that, because the computer's always trying to get you the best gas mileage. Now, if you don't care that much about gas mileage, you can just put it in the power settings. Once you do, it goes to power, and the transmission shifts quite a bit tighter. But of course you'll lose gas mileage then, so the choice is yours. You can kind of play both worlds if you wanted. And if you know me, I'm not a fan of keyless ignition systems, but it does have this little built-in key, so if something goes wrong and you get locked out, you can unlock the door with a key. Voila, back in it goes. Locks in place too. So now you know the truth about a brand new Toyota TRD 4-wheel drive sport version. So you can make a wise choice yourself. This is still a pickup truck. This doesn't have all the fancy bells and whistles that a lot of the American pickup trucks stick in. Of course, it doesn't have all that crap to break either. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.